how to deal with fear and anxiety in these uncertain times, and even talk to your kids about it in a way that's helpful.
What do I say?
DanTheConnerTraining.com.
All right, so I have been getting questions lately on what do I do? What do I say? My kids are very stressed. There's a lot of anxiety going on. How can I talk to them and reassure them that everything's going to be okay? To summarize, the process is you want to write down, put pen to paper, and decide as a family who you are, why you're there, and what you want. Now, if your kids, when asked who you are as a family, cannot answer that question, think of how scary that would be. I mean, really, think of how scary that would be to say, we are now finding ourselves in the midst of the Hunger Games, and I don't even know what my role is. I don't know what the rules of the game are. How could I possibly hope to be the victor? You expect me to be confident and not have anxiety? I don't even know the name of the game. I don't even know what my player name is. I don't even know what the rules are. I don't know what the goal is. But I'm supposed to be calm? That's what our kids on some level are thinking if they do not know the answer to those questions. Think of how scary that would be for you as a kid. If you thought, okay, I'm in the midst of what I believe is the zombie apocalypse that I was watching on TV last month. I think that's upon us. I'm looking to my parents or to my family to say, hey, how are we going to get through this? And they don't even know what the name of the game is. I'm supposed to be calm. I'm not supposed to have anxiety. So that is step one. Once we get through that, naming the players, defining the rules and the objective, then we can go along to step two. So step one is a big deal. There's nothing that you can do until you decide who you are showing up in this lesson. It's not about what to say or what to do as much as it is about who you are going to be. Who are you during this lesson? Who are you? Who is that family? Your kids will know that no matter what life brings, no matter what knocks on that door, no matter where we find ourselves, or no matter who approaches us, I know that when the lesson is over, we will have demonstrated to that person, to that group, to the world, and most importantly to ourselves, who we are. We will have demonstrated that because we know it walking into the lesson. So my only job is to remember who I am. Our job as a family is, no matter what comes along, to remember who we are and demonstrate that to the world. That's the big challenge that we face during these lessons, is remembering, who am I, who am I, who am I, who am I, who am I? Why are we here? What's going on? It is during all challenging times in life that we must remember who we are. That's the challenge. We want to decide when these moments arise. That's when a lot of us try to take the time and decide what to do. How can I decide what to do if I do not know what my role is, what the goal is, or even what's the name of the game? How can I possibly decide how to proceed? Therefore, instead of deciding what to say or what to do, remember, before you do that, decide who you are, what you want, and why you're here. Because if you decide during the moment what to say or what to do, and you are emotionally charged, and that side of the brain has been activated, making you forget logical things, making you forget the lessons you have already learned. If that is the moment where you decide what to say or what to do without even reflecting on who you are, you're doomed. And you are doomed to repeat this lesson over and over and over again until you get it right. Therefore, what I recommend you do is this. I have to tell you a story about my father. I live in the #1 expat community in the world, meaning right where I live in this village in Mexico on the south side of Guadalajara, nestled in the bosom of the Sierra Madre on a Great Lake, is a town called Ajijic, Mexico, and that's where I live. There are more Americans in this town than in any other city in the world outside of the US. And I lived at this time on the corner in the intersection of the major highway that runs through the major town where more Americans live than any other place in the world. The reason I'm telling you all of this is because I wanted to impress upon you there were a lot of Americans right there at this moment when this story took place. It was a beautiful day. It, as every day just about is. It's one of the reasons this city is so popular to Americans is because it has one of the most perfect climates in the world. And so I lived in the second story of a chalet-style place where it had thatched wood ceilings and big wooden beams and terracotta floors and big huge French windows that opened up to a square in front. And I had my windows open because the climate was so beautiful. And in front of me there was a bakery where they sold gringo treats, like cinnamon rolls and delicious coffees. And I was waiting for my parents to show up. And I heard a commotion. And I thought, oh God, I bet they've shown up. Because they're always causing commotions. I know that my parents are master teachers there to teach lessons because they're always saying, here's something going on, take notice. So I went over to the window and I looked down and sure enough, there was a crowd that had gathered and there were people yelling and shouting and I didn't know really what about at the time. And the crowd kind of expanded around what was the cause of all the commotion, which of course was my father. My father died this past Christmas. So I apologize. I've had to try and tell this story about 10 times and I keep having to stop. But this is what happened. There was a woman in distress. It appeared as though she was a prostitute, and that was evidently her reputation in town. She was on the pavement in the middle of the highway, and there was a man physically and verbally assaulting her, trying to get her back into the car. And she was yelling and screaming that she didn't want to get into the car and was asking for help. And instead of people helping her, everybody cleared the way. Everybody cleared the way because they didn't want to get involved. So instead of helping her, what most people decided to do was clear the way because she was a prostitute, She was, I'm sure, a drug addict. And her pimp or John or whatever, you got to be careful with people like that, Here in Mexico, you don't know if he's just her pimp or maybe he's also a narco and could, whip out a machete and cut your head off and sew a pig's head on in its place and hang it from a bridge. They do that. You never know. So most people were protecting themselves and standing back and saying, it's not worth it. She's, let her be. As my father, embodying the Terminator, was walking towards her, staring at her. And he was walking rather slowly. And I could, if you know my father, you know exactly what's going through his head. He is focused on this woman that needs help, and he's going to go help her. And people were yelling at him, and I could hear this from, my window. People were yelling at him, hey, leave it alone. Don't get involved. Don't butt in. Stay out of it. She's a prostitute. You're going to regret it. I mean, all of these people, it was as if I was witnessing a scene from a biblical movie where where there was this woman, her name was probably Maria, needed help at this moment in time. And she probably was a prostitute, and she probably was a drug addict, and she probably was all of these different labels that we tend to give other people. But my father was focused on her as a woman who needed help. So he was walking towards her, and I could tell as I watched from the window, I was like, oh my God, because my dad at the time was in his late 70s. And you know how there are people that you know so well. You know what they're saying. You know what they would do. There's no question in your mind because you know who they are. You know exactly what they would do during certain situations. And so I knew exactly what he was doing and what would be the outcome. He walked up to her. He picked her up. He said something to her like, come on. He brought her to the side of the road where they were eating, their pastries. Sat her down at the table where people cleared the way because they didn't want to be involved in this and didn't want to have anything to do with what this crazy gringo was doing with this prostitute drug addict. And he gave her some of his treats that he had just bought. Treated her with dignity and compassion and kindness. And shortly thereafter, I believe, during this time, during this scene, this event, she got up and went back into the car in the end and went off with her pimp. That's what she did. And that did not matter to my father. And it did not matter what people were yelling at him. And it did not matter what people thought of him. he wasn't concerned with or thinking about what the other people were thinking or saying to him as he did this. He wasn't concerned with the outcome. He wasn't concerned with what she was going to do if she was a prostitute. If that man did have a machete and was about to cut his head off and sew a pig's head on in its place and then hang him from a bridge to show everybody else, teach everybody a lesson. None of those were thoughts or concerns in his mind at all. He had one concern, one thought. This woman needs help. Laser focused, and went and helped her. Remember, I was on the corner of the busiest intersection of the #1 expat community in the world. There were a lot of Americans there, adult American men, watching this. I don't know if the lesson was for them. I don't know. I don't know if the lesson was for me. I don't know if it was for my father, but I know I took a lesson from that scene that was presented to me. And the lesson was, he was so clear as to who he was. I mean, if you knew my father, most people who knew him would say, there has never been anybody that I've known or that most people have known who was as clear as my father was about who he was. And it's with that clarity of thought that my father taught me that lesson. And I hope taught a lesson to all of those people who stood there and watched while somebody else was assaulted. I hope that they learned a lesson from a real man. The reason that I'm telling you this story is, many people these days are coming to me saying, what do I do now? How do I talk to my kids now? How do I reassure my spouse now? How can I communicate effectively now? Look at what's happening. What do I do under these circumstances? And the answer really is, who are you under any circumstances? Because it's not really about what you're going to say. That is the form of communication. The form of communication is going to be the words coming out of my mouth. The substance of my message to the world is who I am. And that's why during moments of sanity and sobriety, when you have clarity of mind, that is when you want to sit down with your kids and say, all right, guess what we're going to do? I don't know if I've made this clear to you, but as a family, we have certain principles that guide us. And I'm not sure how we're going to get through this time. But I am sure that we are going to get through this time. And I am sure that when we are through it, we are going to look back and we will be a stronger, better family because of it. I know that. We don't always have the answers as to how we're going to do things in life, but we do always have it within us to decide who we're going to be as we get through this, who we're going to be as a family unit, who we're going to be as a daughter, a mother, a father, who we're going to be as a citizen, who we're going to be as a race. That is what we can decide. And I want you to remember this, kids. When you go through life, this is simply a lesson for what's to come. Your whole life is going to be filled with situations that are presented to you as lessons. And you're not going to know what to do, because how would you know? How would you know how to get through 5th grade when you're at home and you watch the news and it's like watching a zombie apocalypse horror film? How would you know how you're going to get through 5th grade? How would I know? How am I going to know how we are going to financially get through this and what job I'm going to have in this new world in which we find ourselves? None of those questions we can answer with certainty, because this is brand new for all of us. And that's okay. Because what this lesson is to all of us as a family, and what this lesson is for the O'Connor clan, is who we are. Because I want you to remember, kids, in life, this is just the beginning of what will happen to you, but it's okay. Come here and sit with me, and I want you to do something with me. We're going to make what's called a family compass. What that's going to do is clarify and define, put in writing what we already know to be true, but we're going to define who we are as a family, who we are, why we are here, and what we want. And if we can keep those 3 things in mind, who we are, why we're here, and what we want, if we can just use that as our guiding light, as our compass, as our beacon of light, if we can refer to this compass, if we can have that clear throughout this time, That is the lesson. Because it's not really about how are we going to get through this? How are we going to get through fifth grade? How are we going to get through, April's rent? That's not what it's about, kids. And you will find this in life, that all these little details, that's not the lesson. When these situations present themselves to us, that is when we reveal to the world who we are. You might not think that people are looking. They're looking. Because that's what we're all here to do. We are here to demonstrate to the world something. Let's define what we're going to demonstrate to the world as a family. Okay, who are we? And you'll think of 3 adjectives. And you'll say, now, why are we here as a family? What do you think? What are you here to do? Not here during April or not here in the 5th grade classroom. What are we here to do as a family? Why have we been plunked here? What's the lesson that we are here to teach? What is it? What are we doing? And what do we want as a family? I know some things that I want. I want financial independence. I want, beautiful surroundings. I want many different things. What do we want as a family? Because during these times, there are going to be slivers in time, moments between event and response, where we're going to have to decide what to say or what to do. The thing is, you'll notice many people, they make bad decisions, not because they're bad people. Good people make bad decisions, and bad people make good decisions. But one of the reasons we make bad decisions is because we try to decide in the moment how we're going to proceed. We're in a crisis, and we decide, what should I do? What should I do during that moment? Before you decide what to do, and I want you to remember this, when you're away from home and I'm not there for you, remember I taught you this. You will find yourself in a situation where you're going to have to decide how to proceed. And it's going to be a big deal. It's going to affect you and other people forever. It's one of those turning points. What are you going to do? Remember I told you this. Don't focus on what to do. Remember who you are. You are my son. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember where you came from. In this family, we know who we are. We know why we're here, and we know what we want. We're not just drifting through the universe, letting every wind and wave and challenge throw us off course. We are not being guided by the waves. We're being guided by principle. We're not being guided by the wind. We're being guided by principle. Remember me telling you this, that there will come a time when you need to decide what to do, and you won't know what to do. Remember who you are. And no matter what you do, it will be okay. It will be okay. Because there will come an end of the day. At the end of the day, when you have to look in the mirror before you go to bed, metaphorically or literally, you have to look in the mirror and decide, did I do the right thing? And if you didn't, you're going to have to repeat the lesson. Every person that you meet and every challenge that you face is a lesson. What it's showing you is who you are. It shows you more and more who you are, who you are, who you are. And when you get it right, and even during the most challenging times and relationships and conversations and troubles, you demonstrate, oh yeah? That's the best you have to throw at me? Even with that, I'm going to show you who I am. I am my Father's son. I am my brother's keeper. I am compassionate. I am merciful. I am loving. I am here to be loving. That I know. I have never made a decision in my life where I chose, apart from everything else, I chose to be loving and have lived to regret that decision. Never. I can tell you that. I have made decisions out of lovelessness, and I deeply regret them. I might have even gotten what I wanted in the moment. I deeply regret them. And remember that every person that you meet, every challenge that you face, it's all a lesson. I don't know exactly how we're going to get through this. I don't. This is something new. I do know who we're going to be as we get through this. I do know that no matter what happens, we will get through this together. Just as we've gotten through everything else, knowing who we are. And we as a family, we know who we are. So let's demonstrate that. If your kids can go to bed at night and they know, well, I'm not really sure, how I'm going to get my diploma, virtually maybe, I don't know. I don't even know if I'll still graduate from high school, much less what college am I going to. I don't know anything, but you know what I know? I know that as a family, I know who we are. I know why we are here. And I know why we're here, and I know what we want, and I know more than anything else who we are. Every one of these situations in life is not about that young lady who my father picked up off the street. And it's not about the difficult person at work. It is about who we reveal ourselves to be during those situations. That's what it's about. And if we don't get the lesson right, we are doomed to repeat it. I don't want to repeat this anymore. So if you could please share this with other people and gather people together so that we can all unite, learn, share with one another, and lift each other up and remind one another who we are. That is what this is about. It's not about the coronavirus. It is not about the quarantine. It is not about the fears. It is not about the global economic collapse. It is not about, the borders being shut down. It is about, despite all of these things happening, I am my father's son. I am my brother's keeper. That is the lesson that we are experiencing. I think so many of us have been so focused on what we're doing, we have forgotten who we are as we do it. Now, mark my words, as we remember it, and we show ourselves and say, hey, wait a minute, unemployment rates, global economic collapse, that all may be. And you can explain this to your kids, that all may be. You know what we are going to do? The loving thing. And if we can do that, we will have mastered the lesson. And then, get ready, because the next one's going to be even harder. But that's okay, because we will get through it just like we're getting through this. As a family, together. Because we know who we are. Now let's go show it to the whole world. That's what you do. Then they will know, okay, I might not have the technical answer, but we're still us. All right, good night. They'll go to bed and they will sleep fine. Watch. So if you need any help with that, I'm going to put a link, again, as I said, in the description below that will help you get specific tools for your family to create your own familiar compass and your own personal compass, because we all need as much help as we can get these days. And together, you and I, we will remember who we are. Now, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you can get these lessons on a daily basis as they come out. And once you've done that, go over to danoconnortraining.com and get the materials that come along with this. If you are a VIP member, remember that you'll get all sorts of extra materials for free before coming back and watching some more of these great videos. So for everyone here at Dano Connor Training, this is Dan Connor reminding us to be loving.